So hello and welcome to the 2025 UAGC Culture of Care Summit. I'm Dana Dillard, Program Chair of the Masters of Arts and Doctor of Psychology programs, co-hosting today with Dr. Heather Pedersen, Professor in the Doctor of Psychology program. We are pleased to welcome you to Advancing Your Work Culture Using the UAGC Care Pillars, a panel discussion with Katie Scheie, Vice President and UAGC Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Tony Farrell, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Randy King, Division Vice President and Business Education Services Team, and Glen Watson, Director, Business Education Services Team. I would love to start by just diving right in and having our panelists kind of introduce themselves via our care pillars. Can you briefly explain the 5 pillars of the UAGC care framework? And Katie, I would love to have you start if you're comfortable doing so.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Dana. And thank you, Heather, for having us today. And thanks, everyone, for joining. So, yeah, as Dana said, my name is Katie Scheie, and I'm actually going through a little bit of a transition on my title right now. So I'm actually becoming the Vice Provost Dean of our Global Campus Students. So really excited to be here with you. And also one of the leaders here at this organization that really pushes our culture of care forward and ensures that we're all aligned. So what we thought we would do today is each take one of the 5 pillars and communicate it and talk to you about it. And since there's an extra one, I'm going to take 2. So we're going to go a little bit out of order. So for me, I'm going to talk about the C in our care pillar, which is communicate, and the E, which is empower. So for us, communicate is really about being committed to timely, professional, and transparent communication. It's about valuing perspectives, diverse perspectives, listen to understand, not to respond, and really be open and welcome to feedback. And then going a little further down, is our empower, which it is what it is. It's empower all of the members of our community to speak up, participate, create, learn, and grow. And Glenn, I think I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Okay. Thanks, Katie. And like I was introduced before, and thank you, I'm going to do advocate. We embed equitable practices by advocating for inclusion of diverse voices in every department. And good afternoon to everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Again, my name is Glen Watson. I am the Director of Account Management for UAGC and the BEST team. I work alongside a dynamic team of 14 individuals responsible for the growth and development of more than 400 of our corporate partners nationwide. I don't wake up every morning and say, today I will be an advocate. It tends to be a little bit more natural and ever evolving. We need to focus on the basics, the little things, and do those things well each and every day. And I could go on, but I'm just going to pass it over to Randy right now. We can catch up with some of this other information in the questions. So Randy, over to you.
Oh, Randy, you're muted.
Thank you. Second most common phrase in Zoom world. Anyway, as Glenn was kind of touching on, our team establishes corporate partnerships and we recruit and provide services to those students. And one of the things that with culture care that really needs to be at the heart of everything is respect. And that means that not only do we seek out everybody's opinion, regardless of how diverse it may be from ours, but that we actually listen and try to look at things from their perspective. Quite often, the first time that you think about something and how it's going to impact your team, you don't necessarily consider all the different perspectives that people have. So actively soliciting their input and truly listening to them is extremely important. And with that, I'll pass it over to Dean Tony.
Actually, I think it goes to Katie next, and then I'll
No, I skipped ahead. I didn't follow education. I already did empower, so
You did. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Well, then I'll talk about being student-centered. So when I think about the pillars, it really is a culmination of all 4 when we think about care. But foundationally, when we think about cares, student-centered is the foundation, or it is the basis of everything we do. So when we communicate, advocate, we treat each other with respect, we empower our students and our colleagues. for me, it's all based on on the perspective that everything we do for students. And that, in my personal, I guess, decision making or how I approach my job as the dean for the College of Arts and Sciences and now also the interim dean for the Forbes School of Business and Technology is that if I have a decision to make within that framework is it good for students? Is it good for faculty? If it's not good for faculty, so to speak, potentially it's not going to be good for students either. So I think holistically, we have to frame all the pillars through this lens, especially here at UAGC, on the impact that it has on our students and staff and faculty. So, all right.
Well, and out of respect for everybody's time, I may have been a little too anxious to get us started, so I do apologize if there was confusion on the start time. But I so appreciate your willingness to dive in and share your introductions and experiences with the care pillars. We'd love to kind of just start this dialogue, and I was so engaged with us this section of questions during our practice session. I'm really looking forward to seeing these expounded upon. I'd like to jump into what are some of the common challenges you've encountered in implementing the care pillars within your teams or departments, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Dan, I think a real common thing that occurs is sometimes you have some business interests that may not clearly align or seem to align with the culture of care. And I'll use some examples. Here at the U of A, UAGC, budgets have been extremely tight, to say the least. And with that, people are justifiably concerned about that, how that impacts their position, their pay, etc. And so we can't ignore business requirements, etc. But making sure that we do consider how things impact our teams and what's the best, most caring way that we can implement things, as well as it's always really important to kind of step back and look at the broader perspective that while one thing maybe a door closing, maybe there's a window opening, and that there are things that we can offer people besides just direct compensation, et cetera, to improve things like their work-life balance, so that people really do feel that we're listening to them and that we care for them.
Dana, I'm gonna, when we walked through this the other day, Randy and I kind of attacked this from different perspectives. And so I'll share that, in my time here at this university, this institution, that there have been times when, we're dealing with budgets or we're dealing with, you know, pay freezes, or we're dealing with not being able to immediately backfill positions or things of that nature. And what I think, and this is just my perspective, the culture of care in these pillars is not, it's not an avenue to say that everybody is always going to be happy about a decision or the current state all the time. I don't think foundationally that is necessarily what culture of care means. I think what it is that we have an opportunity to treat each situation through a lens where we're transparent with our communication. We're advocating for our folks where possible. We treat everybody with respect. We try to empower people, and going through all of the pillars. But I think at the end of the day, if we look at problems in a way where we're either trying to solve them or we're being transparent and just sometimes even owning a situation and saying, hey, I don't know what the answer is right now. I'll try to find it for you. I think that those types of, I think, tough situations that that I shared earlier can, I don't want to say they can make them any better or more palatable, but certainly with that relationship and trust that hopefully these pillars built into our workday makes it easier to move forward, or gives us an opportunity to problem solve together, which I think is the important thing.
Yeah, I know if I can add on just really quick, I think Tony, you really hit it on that head on that one. And when I was thinking about this question about, what are the challenges you encountered, when you are encountering challenges is when you should absolutely 110% double down on the care pillars. That is when they come into play, right? More than ever. It's easy to care when things are easy. It's when tough times arise that we have these common terms, common language, common definitions, because that is when you should lean into it. And that's how you should think about approaching those challenging times, whether they're in your workplace, at your university, in your family, anytime. That is really when you can lean on those. So I just kind of wanted to, hit that home, Tony, and share that. That's why you have those there, and then you can lean on them. And then ask that of your employees and your people, right? We're people too in leadership positions. And so how can we lean on that and find that empathy for each other?
Yeah. And challenges for someone that leads a team. I know many people on the call right now probably have a team of individuals. At one time, we went into an office, we all saw each other, and now we're all spread out all over the country. So it's very difficult sometimes to make that collaboration, to make the innovation, to do those things and work together the way that's proper. But we're also very diverse. Everything is different. And I feel like Forrest Gump sometimes, where life is like a box of chocolates and everyone is different. Everything is different. We deal with different things, different understanding of problems. And it's the way we listen, it's the way we understand and let those voices be heard. We need to individualize and hear what they're saying and take that information and utilize it to build trust and to make sure that the team feels supported. So they feel confident to communicate their information to us and talk to us, and we can help them and we can support them and make things work because it is difficult. And we want to make sure that everyone feels heard and feels like they're going to be accounted for. And that's one thing that's really a tough challenge. But I think the pillars, Katie, absolutely, if we lean on those and we look at those and that information there, it does help. And I have to look at those every day sometimes just to remember. So thank you.
Building off of that just a little bit, I know it deviates a little from our script, but have you thought of, or do you have any examples of these challenges that have transformed into care-inspired actions?
Sure, I do. I have an example. One of the things that I was thinking about when answering this question too is for any of us that are joining us on this panel today that are in the education arena and in the higher ed, there is a lot of external pressures happening right now. There is a lot of external changes happening potentially within the Department of Education, right? The student loans, the DEIA work that is happening around us. And as a committee here at this university, we felt sort of lost in how to support our university community in that process. And it felt very challenging and people were scared. And so what our culture of care committee did is actually say, hey, also too, sometimes when those external pressures are going on, it's hard for the university level to make a statement, right? It's hard to come out and be like, this is what we're going to do and change. So our internal committee put care circles together. And we had 2 options of time because of the time zones where our culture of care committee members helped facilitate and schedule and show up for each other, for our faculty and for our staff, where this was not a problem solving hour. This was not we're going to come up with the answer. It is I care, we care, I see you. This is hard, and how can we navigate this together? So that's a challenging thing that came up, where I think we really leaned on our pillars and then created some care circles.
It's fantastic to see that implemented in that fashion. Thank you so much for your willingness to engage with an off-the-cuff question. Moving on to what we had actually planned for, I apologize for that. How can leaders at all levels model the care pillars in their own behavior and interactions with colleagues and students?
I think Glenn and I are going to kind of share this run and riff off, and I'm sure Tony and Randy might have, but I would say is be genuine. I like to say that we as leaders have to show up in that way. I like to also think about it this way: treat everyone how I'd want my family members to be treated. How would I, if my daughter was running into a challenge at work or at school and was going into the office to talk to her principal or a teacher, What respect would I want her to have, and how would I treat her or any one of my family members, or, my mom who's a little on the older side of the spectrum, how would I show up for her? And so I like to do that one too, treat everyone like a family member. And then I also think it's kind of back to my example, Dan, that you just threw out, asked about and I brought up the care circles. Communicate, allow people to vent. It is okay for people to not be okay. I think we go really quick to fix, and what's the solution? Sometimes people just need to not be okay for a minute, and that's okay. But then you have to really then turn that focus quickly and work on a plan and focus on what we can control, or you can control personally for yourself, and make sure that as leaders, we're asking our people and our peers, what do you need to be okay, and how can I help and support that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think if any of us are going to talk about culture of care, we're going to need to not just talk about, we're going to have to actually, be present and actually act the way we're talking and present ourselves accordingly. That means I have to be transparent, and I have to be open, and I have to always provide a consistent and inclusive approach to all members of the team. And I expect the team to also follow the same traits. I mean, we're talking about leadership right now, providing this, but what about the team? They need to follow the same traits and characteristics. They need to be passed along to them, so that when they're working with other team members, when they're working with POCs in the field, when they're working with our customers or our students, they need to follow and give them the same time and hear them the same way. So it's really important that we take care of everyone the same way and be really consistent in our efforts.
Yeah, I think another really good thing to think about is, what along the lines of being consistent, but trying to figure out if somebody has an input, asking why. Okay, because it may not be the issue that they're bringing to you. There's usually something that's behind that. For instance, we recently sunsetted one of our recognition programs, and somebody reached out to me that they were upset about that, and we really hadn't, I think, run it through a culture of care process to explain to people why we were sunsetting it, which was because of state requirements. It wasn't another austerity measure. And then I needed to ask myself, why was this person concerned about it? It's like, well, because this is one of my top performers who has had a lot of recognition, and now one of those sources of recognition was going to go away. So now I need to act and make sure that I actually kind of step up my game a little bit in recognizing the efforts of my team.
And I'll add a little bit too. As a young leader, my first administrative job in education, I was an assistant principal at an elementary school in Colorado, and I worked for, I won't use any names to protect the innocent, so to speak. But my first principal that I worked for, who was a thought leader, she was extremely knowledgeable about K-12 education, and was a dynamic leader when it came to curriculum and content. But she wasn't a very good people leader. And I didn't know one day to the next whether I would have a Starbucks coffee on my desk, or I would have to hide underneath my, hide in the corner waiting for her to go by. And so I learned a long time ago that being consistent and treating people with respect is really important as a leader. And so I have tried to model that every day that I am, I'm honored to be able to lead people. So I think part of that too is developing relationships and trust. I think, a lot of the work that I've done related to care and these pillars is grounded in the work of Simon Sinek, Start with Why, and Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits, and thinking about, what is my why? What's my purpose? I'm building trust in relationships and trying to bring that to UAGC on a daily basis is really a goal. And I'm human. Sometimes I'm better. I have better days than others, But at the same time, I really try at the end of the day to say, hey, have I done my best today? And I think as leaders, if we can walk away and say that we've done our best today, then I think that's a win to a certain extent.
I think you bring up a really good point about past experiences and people that we had to deal with as leaders or people that we worked with at some point. I mean, I grew up in several different cultures. I was in a culture of competition as a young person. I had to win. I had to do this. I had to do these things. It was all I and me. As I went into business, it became the same thing. And some of the mentors and some of the advocates, I guess, I had growing up in business were not very good. I mean, they were very false in how they promoted things and how they were untrustworthy and sometimes not even honest. And as a young person taking on those things, it was really difficult. And I think over time, I had to become better for the people around me, for my family, for my neighbors and friends, and for the people that I had to deal with. I had to be a better person. And I think our culture right now is not based on I, it's not based on me, it's based on we, it's based on us, it's based on when we talk, when I hear my team talk about things, they don't say, I did this, I have this, I need this. It's we need this. We completed this. All the team did this together. And because that togetherness and that work, they're completing so much more for the whole, not just for individuals, they're completing it for our team, our department, and UAGC, and especially our students. It's really important to know that. And we have we have gone through some tough times and tough people to deal with and tough bosses, but I don't think this group is like that. I've learned a lot from the people in this call right now, and they've made me a better person. They've made me a better leader. They've made me a much better person to work with. And I really appreciate that. And that's what we should take from this.
I'm loving these answers and trying not to write down too many more questions to bog y'all down with. Another question for you. What role does leadership play in creating and maintaining a culture of care within an organization?
The most critical role. I mean, it really is. I mentioned it before, as leaders, we must model the way. And the buck starts and ends with us, right? You can't, and actions speak so much louder than words, right? I think we've all probably fallen into that trap before where you're, the corporate jargon or like, oh, this is our tagline, or, this changes everything. And we have a culture of care. And, but it starts with the leadership, and it starts with really modeling it and ensuring that you show up that way, because then that trickles down, right? Then your leaders will show up that way for their teams, their team members will show up for each other that way. I mean, Glenn, what you just said is like just the perfect example of what role the leadership plays in that, right? It can be the negative or it can be the positive. And so we really do, I think, play the most critical role.
Yeah. I think we need to express gratitude to the team sometime and the people around us. A simple thank you, something small like that does make a difference. People feel heard. They feel like they're part of something. I think that's really important. And they really feel valued in what they're doing and about their roles. I know the team, my team, this team, and I hate to say I think it's our team, they work really well together, not because they were instructed to do so. It's because they truly care about each other and they respect each other. And they're working for a team concept and a team goal. They really want to do that. And sometimes it's hard to keep that going, but going through some of the things we've already been talking about that transparency, about the respect, about the honesty and how we handle things, and looking at those pillars, I think that makes a difference day to day. And we've gone through some really crazy hurdles and some roadblocks that are thrown in front of us, but the team continues to achieve success in spite of that. And most important, they trust the efforts they have, and they're always ready to work for UAGC and do the best they can for our students. So it's really important to keep that going. I feel that way completely.
I completely agree, Glenn. And, as leaders, there's, I think, a couple things that are really critical. One, we need to hold ourselves accountable to our team's culture. Okay. And, make sure that you're acting as a facilitator. I know within the best team, we actually put it, in writing, with input from our team, that we have a culture of collaboration and we try to hold each other to that standard.
That's great. I think that accountability to yourself is so important as a leader. I'm going to be a little bit more, I say, macro when it comes to UAGC. We have been very fortunate over the years to have senior leadership who really prioritize culture and the culture of care. And the genesis of this, and hopefully the team here will check me if I'm wrong or I misremember dates, but August of 2020, we were brought to Arizona to start talking about certain initiatives to move forward. And this idea of power of one that pivoted to culture of care was brought up, and it was moved forward. And it was moved forward by Paul Pasterek, who was at that time was the president of UAGC. And he really believed that this was a worthy initiative. And so over my experience as a leader, having that senior leader that is committed to that, and that our ELT is committed to that, gives us the ability to move forward. And then when the leadership pivoted to Gary, he took that ball, using a sports analogy, and continued to run with it, and has empowered us more to grow, and has challenged us more to grow the culture of care within the institution, and even elevating it to an ELT level initiative where, Katie oversees that now. And so having leadership buy-in on initiatives like this is so important, because we've all been in situations, especially in education, where there's been an initiative that starts in the fall, and then by the spring we're on to something else, right? But this has longevity, it has legs, it is part of the fabric of this university moving forward. And others have seen that, whether it's our program reviewers or accreditors and things like that. They see that this is a really important part of our institution. That's a differentiator of who we are as compared to other institutions, which is something I'm really proud of. And I'm proud of all the work that we have done related to that.
Continuing on that theme, as leaders, how can you support those who might be resistant to organizational or cultural change?
I think one of the things that you can do is to reward dissent. I know in our department, once again, personal experience, during a department call, we had somebody raise a very sensitive issue, and immediately it was like, all right, well, you're going to be mad at me, but we actually gave her, we recognized her efforts with an award at our next gathering. So one, she knows that we actually appreciated her dissent, and that we listened to her and we made some changes based on that. And the entire team knew that, okay, this is an open forum, and we do value everybody's opinion.
I mean, I was going to kind of say, I'd say, I think those are sometimes the people you as hard as it is, want the closest and to bring along for the ride, right? Because it's easy to do things like, if we're talking about today, when everyone's rallying behind you, right? It's sometimes the person that's on that Zoom, we all know it. We all know the person that's on the Zoom screen that's like, sure, yep. Video's off, they're distracted, they're not buying in. And so those people can be really insightful sometimes, understanding why is the buy-in not there? What's happening? What are you seeing? Kind of Randy's example earlier about one of our, our high five that we had to take away, right? Really, it was about like, well, now, like, I maybe the people like that recognition, so that's what you're missing. So you can kind of start to figure out, why aren't you buying in? Why aren't you believing in this? What can I personally do better? And then sometimes it's just allowing that voice to be heard, and then reframing, like reframe the topic, flip it on the head, well, what would you say? How would you bring someone along? What could we do differently? And then that's what starts to influence evolution and continuous improvement and change, which is what we're all trying to do every single day.
I agree with that 100%, especially with the team Many of the individuals on the team have strong personalities, and they want to share their information and share their ideas. And sometimes they have some negativity there, but you're absolutely right that they're doing that because they care and they want to have information. They want to change things. They want to make things better. Dealing with clients that are always, everything's wonderful, everything's great, everything's perfect. They're not really helping us out very much because we really don't know the underlying needs and factors that are going on with that account. But if they come to us and have a problem or an issue, that means they care. That means they care about their employees, they care about the students, and they want things to change. They want to help them out. And as I work with the team, I say, those are the ones you want to work with. Those are the people you care about the most because they're going to provide the most guidance. And if you can take care of them, they will be the best advocate for you going forward, and they will care about what they do. And the same thing with our individuals, the ones that you're talking about that have needs and have questions and are demanding sometimes because they care. And those are the people we want to take care of and work with the most. And that helps.
Dana, that is a tough question. You know, I certainly agree with my colleagues 100%. You're going to have people who don't necessarily see a problem or a solution the same way. And so, leaning on the pillars, leaning on trust, relationships, and having a respectful environment and a transparent environment where people feel safe to share how they're feeling and moving forward, I think is really, really important. Now, after we've had these conversations and we've gone through this and we've given people an opportunity to share and listen and try and really incorporate the feedback, I think it's really important that as an organization that we don't focus in on those who are not necessarily aligned with the mission and vision. And so at the end of the day, kind of focusing in on the critical mass. We have momentum. We have faculty, staff, students who are moving forward towards this goal of graduation and retention and completion. And that really is our purpose, right? And so certainly we want to bring everybody with us. That is really the intent. But I think at the end of the day, having that foundational focus on what's our goal, what's our mission, how are we transparent, how do we build trust and relationships? I think hopefully that allows those that may not have the same type of alignment initially to come along. Well, that's the hope. So
I can add on just two
Yeah.
things that really quick. Sorry, Dana, Tony, that you bring up that I think is a really good point for all of us to remember, right? Is sometimes the loudest voice of disdain is also a very small group of individuals or people. And so it's okay. It's you got to remember that as a leader sometimes, is you can feel like, oh, it's not working. Like I feel like I'm, pushing this up a hill constantly. And sometimes though, you got a lot more people around you trying to push it up the hill than you think. And you've got to lean into those individuals as well and not allow some of that, those headwinds, to slow you down. And I don't want this to sound like a negative into this question, but also to Tony's point, there is sometimes with respect and with open communication, you do have to have that conversation of like, this is what we do here. And this is how we do it. And are you on the bus or are you not? Because if you're not, I will help you find the right one. But I need you to like start to come along now, right? And so there does have to be that moment, because we've got to move. So.
What I absolutely appreciate about this answer was that was another unscripted question. So thank you so much for answering that question as well. But it also really showcases how embedded the pillars are into our culture, because each of those answers was about communicating, advocating, respecting, and empowering. From a leadership perspective, they're people-centered, but at the end of the day, it's student-centered. So to me, this really has exemplified what it means to have leaders who have embraced and really truly embodied these pillars in everything that's done. We have about 4 minutes left of our session. If there's any questions that anyone would like to post to chat, I would love to open it up to that. Or if there's any parting thoughts that our wonderful panelists would like to expound upon in looking at advancing care in your organization.
I mean, while we're waiting for a question, I'll just take the moment to thank my panelists that have been with me today. I've worked with these gentlemen for a very, very long time. And it's just I really appreciate being able to share this panel. We have been through some hard times together, not only as colleagues and team members and leaders through our teams. And I've just appreciated, thank you also Dana and Heather for the well thought out questions you've asked us. And I just feel really honored to be able to share kind of what we do here, because these three gentlemen with me definitely exemplify the culture of care here within our university. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Completely agree, Katie. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership and embodying culture of care. I will tell you, it is super wonderful when you know you can rely on your leaders' dedication to culture of care, because while it obviously has a lot of benefits, when times get tough, if your team knows that you're dedicated to culture of care, even in tough times, then you'll get through those things together.
Well,
I just appreciate the opportunity to share the Zoom screen with these great leaders. This is, I think it was very fortuitous to have leaders from different parts of the institution talk about culture of care and how there is a huge through line between everything that we do related to the pillars and how we treat each other. And I think we know that we have work to do. We always have work to do here at UAGC, but having this as a foundational piece of our culture and who we are as an institution, I think makes this an amazing place to work and to serve students.
Thank you all. We had a team meeting yesterday and I told everyone how fun this job is. If they don't think it's fun, then you guys, get the other bus that Katie has. She must have a whole bus line that she works through to get people.
got a lot now.
But yeah, I have the same team I had for so many years because they agree that it's fun. They love being here. They love doing their jobs. And it's because of the people on this panel that they work with every single day in different capacities and follow along the leadership that comes from them. So thank you all. This is a great place to be, and I love it.
We do have an additional question that's kind of come through, is translating again pillars into action. Do you have any ideas or steps on how the pillars can translate into those actionable steps for improving the work culture within a specific department or team?
I mean, I would just suggest some things of, maybe ensuring that this is a standing topic in one-on-one discussions. Like, are you feeling cared for right now? Are you feeling like I'm communicating openly? Ask questions, and listen. So I think that, anyway, making it part of your goal setting. Lots of us have done that within this institution, other places, like really creating it as a goal for you on a quarterly and yearly basis. And create action plans with your team members or other folks. Like if they're giving you feedback or you feel like, what can I be doing better? And then hold yourself accountable and then be asked to be held accountable to that. I think that's really what it just comes down to.
I think to a certain extent, I mean, this is an institution and environment where sometimes we don't have patience, that we want to move very quickly, but understanding that sometimes it takes time to build culture and to change culture. And, as Katie shared, goal setting and communication is really important. But I think as a leader, making sure that you're aligned with the pillars and making sure that it's a part of what you do, as we referenced the modeling, I think that's a great way to really impact your teams. If it's just words, if it's just something that's in an email, then potentially it's not going to have the impact then as much as your team seeing you living it and being about those those pillars moving forward.
We did have another question come in. How can a leader manage those who find it hard to be happy or have fun at work?
Wow. I don't have that problem right now. They're all happy. But I think in some cases in the past, there have been those situations that have occurred. And you can't always make someone happy. You can't always make someone, be part of the team sometimes. And you have to share with them. And I think Katie brought up a good point, to have those sessions and talk to those individuals and find out more about what their needs are. Because what I think makes people happy, what I think makes them want to do their job, may not be what they like and what they want. And I have to be adaptable and a chameleon so many times, and I have to adapt to each individual person, what their needs are and what their thoughts are. So what I think is happy, what I think is great, what I think is wonderful may not be the same for others. And I have to understand that, and I have to listen and let them be heard, and then make adjustments in how I treat and how I work with them to make sure that they do feel better about their lives and what they're doing. I think there was a question earlier, something about work-life balance for some people. Some people, really don't like any to work beyond their time frame. And some people work all the time. And there's that balance that's needed to help out. And sometimes that makes people happy too, just being able to balance properly. So tough question, but it does happen.
Well, and I'd add on that kind of, the story I came in on, but respect. Okay, making sure that you're responsive, that you're listening, that you truly do try to consider, what is behind their question or concern. And if you can, I like to have a yes bias. If I can say yes, I want to try to say yes. Okay, if it's not going to hurt anything or anything, then I want to try to do that. And then if they see even small things acted on that reflect their input, then they'll want to make more input. They'll have more ownership in the outcome.
Absolutely.
The other thing, Glenn, you got me thinking about as well is you have to take an individualistic approach too, right? I think sometimes as leaders, right, like I feel like I keep going back to one-on-one conversations, but we're not having water cooler talks anymore in the hallway as much as we used to be able to, right? Because we're all on Zoom. Sometimes you have people that report to you that they want a very structured agenda for their one-on-one. They really want to go over like their accomplishments and their tasks and talk about, the goals that they hit and every single time. And there's some people that want to tell you what they did over the weekend with their family and their kids and what they have coming up over the weekend, or they're at a moment in time in their life where they're so excited about the next step in their own life that is not unproductive use of a one-on-one, right? I think there's some people that as leaders, we feel like we have to always talk about like if people know that you really care about them and what's going on in their lives and their families, they will show up in those hard times anyways. If they're performing, right? So if you have those also individuals that just feels like a drag to them to do that, you're not a bad leader for not always having every meeting or one-on-one discussion be about performance or the goals, right? So if there is someone who's not, I would figure out what they want to talk about, right? Like talk about what's going on in their lives right now, or maybe you can't, I had a leader tell me an example the other day, like, maybe I can't give you the pay increase right now or do this, but I know it's really important for you to not have a meeting from 2 to 2:30 every day because you like to go pick up your daughter from school. So I'm going to do that. You can block that on your calendar. We're on the same page with that. You're going to go do that. Right. So also, I just think, chameleon, morph your style, figure out who your people are, what they want to talk about. And that I think is what will drive them to be happy. And then again, if they're not, what bus is going to make them happy eventually? Like people don't want to show up pissed off every day, right? That doesn't make anyone happy. Like they're not happy either. So sometimes that next thing is what you can do to show them you care the most about them because you want them to be happy every day when they show up in their job.
Katie, that's such a good point. And actually, I was going to bring up a version of that as well. And, I was a baseball coach, still coach baseball. And, one of the things is that you can't coach or lead everybody the same way. And to Katie's point, the type of meetings that you have or one-on-ones you have with one of your team members could be completely different. But I think foundationally, again, who's responsible for happiness? I don't know if you as a leader are ultimately responsible for someone's happiness, but what you can do is create an environment that hopefully is respectful. It's based on respect. It's based on communication, that they know that you care about them as not just as an employee, but as a human being, and that they feel like they're cared for. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we can do to hopefully show somebody that this is a great place to be, is having those types of communication opportunities, and what, that one-on-one time is really important.
Standing. Those are the last of our questions. Any last thoughts from our panelists? Getting lots of kudos in the chat, and thanks for the discussion and dialogue, and a special thumbs up for the care circles, which was an outstanding action from challenges. I would like to say a big thank you to Katie, Tony, Randy, and Glenn for your time and your insights as we conclude advancing your work culture using the UAGC care pillars. Thank you also to all of our viewers for joining us. We hope you found the conversation inspiring. Please check the chat for the link to the Clifford Blizzard Award if you would like to nominate this panel. We invite you to check out the Summit website as well, provided in the chat, to select your next session. Once again, on behalf of the Department of Behavioral Sciences and the University of Arizona Global Campus, thank you for attendance, and please have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.